Welcome back to Old Guy REI. We're back with the weekly update on our accountability Zoom call. This one, Mikey, is for New Year's Day, January 1st. We had a pretty good turnout considering.
We were surprised. We were talking about comparing it to Christmas, and this one, Christmas was a little lower turnout, which is ex to be expected. We were thinking the same for this one, but no, it was almost triple the amount of people and some new investors as well.
Yeah, it was great. We had one person dropped in. He's in Canada investing here. I think in the school community, I've met one other person that lives in Canada that invests down here. This investor seemed pretty experienced. He has a couple of apartment buildings with a partner on one of them, I think, and he actually might be getting a job in Ohio, so he's considering relocating and he was looking for a new market to start investing in here.
It was interesting how they have the variable rate debt, and he said the taxes are higher because there's no 1031 available in Canada. He says even though you make 20% on the property, you lose 40% on the currency, which shocked all of us. 55 units and private lending as well. So it was an interesting story that he was telling.
Yeah, so he has to make a pretty good chunk to make a profit on deals there. So I can understand why he would consider coming this way. Um, there was some other things that we talked about, like one of our friends was actually waiting for news on a new job that he might be getting. He's in Delaware, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was talking about a deal that he might pass on because it looked like there might be a chance he would have to put more of his own money in to get the property and then the cash flow would be a little bit less. So that was understandable. I think a lot of us right now are just thinking it's a good time to be patient and not force the issue on anything like that. It always seems to come back and bite us if we do.
Yeah, he was saying average in his market is negative 3% cash on cash, but the one he got was 3% cash on cash. And hey, that's a great deal if
Yeah.
that's what your market average is.
Yeah, he was excited about that one. A couple of people were looking at deals. I think one of our friends in Texas had been following a large home. I think he said it was a 4 bedroom, 2 bath in his market. He put an offer in on it. It went under contract, not with him, but with someone else. And it had fallen out of contract twice, and he was wondering if he should pursue it or not. Some of the people in the group thought, and like I do, I would have my agent reach out to their agent because they ended up taking the property off the market after it fell out the second time, just to reach out to their agent and see what was up. Say, hey, my offer still stands if you guys are open to it. At least find out why it fell out of contract. Sometimes on deals that we've been involved in, it was an issue on the inspection or something like that. So we were able to offer that potential buyer like to pay for half of the inspection report if they would share it with us. And that saved us, probably 300, $400. And it helped that buyer get some money back. But just to find out what's the issue, whether it was financing or inspection related, things like that. Would you have followed up after seeing something like that?
I listened to Zuber and he emphasizes following up. So I haven't followed a property where I've been able to do that, but in the future, I definitely would be interested to do that.
Yeah, you never know what could happen. The same investor was still having issues. He's doing a rehab there in Texas as well, and he's looking for a plumber and electrician, but he was a little uncomfortable with the plumber asking for a deposit before the plumber did any work. And we were saying how, like here in California, as a contractor, I can ask a customer for $1,000 deposit or 10% of the cost of the project, whichever's less. So I guess in most jurisdictions, they expect a contractor to have the funds, their own personal funds or lines of credit or whatever it might be, to start a project and get so far before you ask for a progress payment or something like that. And I think the plumber was asking for $1,000. The plumber had to pull a permit to get started, so there's a little bit of cost there. So I was thinking $1,000 wasn't too much. You have to start somewhere and one good thing is that the plumber was referred to him by another investor. So there was a little bit of trust there already. So I think he was pretty safe in starting with that deposit.
You have 3 decades of contracting experience. When you pull a permit, what is that process like? The time involved?
Yeah, for us, depending on the project, if it's a simple, like you might call it lipstick renovation, um, on the last one we did, we needed to get a permit because we were replacing the windows, and that permit was pretty easy to get. We just fill out the form. There's a description on the form, asks you what you're doing. On that one, just replacing windows, and you call it in kind. We weren't changing any opening sizes or anything like that. And that permit was $350. Um, then once you get the windows torn out and have the new ones set before you trim them out, they come out and look at the job and make sure you're flashing the windows properly and they're sealed properly and things. And then once you get all the trim back on, get all of that sealed again, they come back out and sign you off. Sometimes, if you're removing walls or things like that, you have to supply a small drawing. On those kinds of jobs, it's a little bit more involved for the contractor. If it's more than that, then we usually have to get a draftsman or architect to draw plans. And then that could take weeks to get through the planning department, but the other ones are just over the counter, so those are pretty easy.
Okay. So it's like even when you're first starting out your company, was permits harder to pull than once you have more familiarity, you're maybe a decade in, they get to know you.
Yeah, there's a couple different planning departments for, like in our case, there's city planning departments. So the city I live in, the job I talked about with the windows, we pulled the permit with the city. When you're on the outskirts or in the county, then there's a different planning department for there. So I think I've always had good luck because we always go in, being straight up, letting them know what we're going to do. It's when you try to pull something over on them, and that's not great. But the they do rotate also, so you're never going to get the same inspector. Even within the city, they might have three or four, and they rotate. So, when you begin a project, you might have the one guy. When you finish it, you might have another. And in the beginning, yeah, I was really nervous because I was always like, I hope I did everything correctly and to their standards. But now now we've done it so many times. It's just scheduling, making sure you're ready, because if you're not ready and they come out, then that's another issue. They got to come
Yeah.
back and check something, or if you have to fix something and they got to come back for that, it can cause issues.
Yeah, and even that story you talked about your plumber. Your plumber went out but had to get a permit. So he went to a master plumber to get the permit and then he did the work.
Yeah, and that was on one of our properties in St. Louis. That was and that's happened. I think that's the same thing with our friend in Texas. They need to have a master plumber pull the permit too. I couldn't do it as a homeowner from California to St. Louis, and but here in California, as the general contractor, I can pull all the permits for plumbing, roofing, electrical, and everything like that. I don't have to have a special guy go and do it. The That brings up a good point. You mentioned the out of state thing, and I wanted to mention too that a couple of our friends, Lindsay for one, is started the out of state investor call in the school community, and the first one was this past Friday. They had a great turnout, and I didn't get a chance to stay for the whole thing, but it was really nice to see there was a lot of interest, and even some of the people on our Wednesday call were in there because they're out of state investors too. I think I would say over half of the people in the community are out of state investors, you know, um, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that's every Friday on 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And they're planning on doing that every week. Let's see what else we talked about. Oh, one of our friends too, he's in your market in Pittsburgh. His tenants moved out and they left a bunch of stuff behind. He was wondering if he should take the time to do a yard sale because I guess they left some good stuff behind, or if he should just donate it or what. But I think a few people in the group had the same sentiment where if it's worth your time to sit there for a day or two and make whatever $100 or $200, is that really worth it when you could be doing other things? Um, we used to do a lot of that because back in like 2012 and 2014, we were doing a lot of work for the banks on repossessed homes, and we would go in and do trash outs, and we would just people just left amazing stuff. There was just all this good stuff. So I brought a lot of it home, and my wife likes to do yard sales. I don't. I don't like arguing with people about the prices. If I put something out there, if I put something out there for sale and I put a price tag on it, that's it. Don't argue with me. Just if you don't want it, don't take it. Right? But Cynthia she just loves to go back and forth with people. I don't understand it.
But how is your pricing? Is your pricing fair and reasonable, or is it on the upper higher end?
No, I think it's reasonable because I want to get rid of the stuff, right? I don't want to have to pack it up again at the end of the day. But
Okay.
some people, I used to tell them it's a yard sale, not a yard giveaway. The stuff is not free, so don't even stop.
Oh.
Um, one of the people on the call shared a property he was looking at in Delaware again. It was a 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath, and he thought it was a really good deal, but it wasn't going to go on the market until the day after. Like on Thursday, it was supposed to go on. So he was going to wait and see what kind of action it got to see if he was going to put in an offer. I think he said he was even willing to go 10,000 over asking because what he thought he could get for rents and the condition of the property would still make it a good deal.
Was that the one with the bullet hole? And when it was inspected, the bullet hole wasn't on the outside, but it was the inside, so he was less worried.
Well, I'm not sure. Oh,
Yeah, I
is,
I remember that story though.
was that the property in Texas or the one in Delaware?
Delaware, I thought.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was one of our other friends in Pennsylvania was talking about one of his tenants that got behind on rent. And over the course of the last few months, he got bit by the neighbor's dog, which was a tenant of this guy also. And so our friend, the landlord, asked that tenant to leave. It was the guy's girlfriend, and she was taking care of dogs or something. One of the dogs bit the neighbor, and so he had her move out and take the dogs with her. And then the guy that got bit was the one behind on rent, so he moved out, and he was not wanting to pay the back rent, and he was telling our friend that if he pursued the rent that he was going to go to court about the dog bite, and he was wondering if he should pursue it. I think he was having a little bit of trouble because it was a, I don't know what he called it, a character flaw of his, but he felt belittled and he was willing to fight. But most of us in the group thought, it was good that the tenant was out and he had won already, so just leave it be and, find the next tenant and move on. What would you do in that case?
Dude, I can't even think that far ahead. I don't even know what I would do. I have so much stuff going on now. I can't. My brain capacity isn't having no space for that. How about you?
Well, I think years years ago I probably would have I don't know, my feelings would have been hurt. I probably would have thought about going after him in court. But now that we have some experience, I think knowing what it could take to get someone out legally, you're going to lose a couple months probably doing an eviction and things like that, and you're still not going to recover the money. So if the person's out, I would take that as a win nowadays, and I would just move on.
It's just the best business decision for your portfolio.
Yeah, yeah, treat it as a business for sure.
And
Um,
he gave that one great line where for his experience as an investor, generosity never repaid with a tenant.
no, and we've heard stories in the group over the last few weeks about, people trying to be nice, and then the tenants just take even more and more advantage and make things worse for the landlord in the end. We had, along with a investor from Canada, one of our other friends stopped by, and she's in Wisconsin investing in single families. So it was nice to see her again. There was talk about issues with plumbing and whether the home is on a slab or not. Um, I think, as far as I go, my thoughts are if a property is on a slab, it's nice sometimes because in St. Louis, everything has a basement pretty much. And basements have issues. The walls will leak a little bit, get a little bit of water coming through there over time, but at least all the plumbing is exposed and you can get to it. If the property's on a slab and the hot and cold water run under the slab, if you have a leak, sometimes it takes a while to find it, and then it's expensive to repair it because you got to break through the concrete. I've seen some slab homes where the plumbing actually runs up a wall, an exterior wall, and then the hot and cold water is up in the roof or the attic space. I prefer that myself because then at least you can work on it without too much expense. I mean, if it leaks, it's going to damage some stuff, but it seems still easier to repair.
And you made a great point because you still would have to think about the drain lines, and if that's under the slab as well.
Yeah, depending on the age of the home, if it has cast iron. Sometimes we had a home, Cynthia and I lived in a place that was on a slab, and that was clay pipe. And luckily, when it failed in the front yard, and I replaced all that. But if it had failed under the concrete, that would have been a nightmare.
So you put clay to fix it, or you changed it to different pl
No, yeah, we changed it. So what had happened was roots got in when they put clay pipe in. Typically, it's in 4-foot sections, and every time they join them, they would pack them with like it's kind of like mortar, but they pack the joints and put mortar over it. And then as time goes by, the tree roots would lift the pipe, and it a, opened a little gap in the joint. And then from there, the roots like to get in there to the water. So we just went right outside the house and we cut the clay. And then we went to the street and we cut the clay and I put in plastic pipe from end to end. And that should still be there as far as I know. But yeah,
Also, transitioning from you can go from clay and it transforms into plastic and it's okay.
yeah, they have different kinds of fittings that you can use depending which pipe you're coming from and going to. And you can even see it at Home Depot on the labels. It'll say cast iron to plastic or cast iron to copper or things like that. And the sizes of the hubs on each side are different because a 4-inch clay pipe, usually I believe it's the inside diameter is 4 inches, but on ABS, it's outside. So those two sizes aren't the same. So the fitting has to be bigger on the clay side and smaller on the plastic side to make that tight. And then you can transition that way. Uh, what else did we chat about? Did I miss anything?
I did like the one investor saying, because you're thinking about possibly moving property management and just saying what type of value you could get. You still want to remain professional in communication, but if you're going to a different management, one investor suggested, why don't you try to mine all the subcontractors from the previous property management? Just try to get all of the contact information just so that those subcontractors will still work with you, but it's just you might can hold on to some of those resources while you're moving over to another management.
Yeah, it seems like frustration with property managers is a common topic in our meetings. And out of state investing isn't easy to begin with, but then the challenge of finding the right fit for you as far as property management. You and I have talked a lot about the different platforms they use as for software and records keeping and things like that. And that that takes a little bit of time to get used to because in our case we have four different property managers and two of them use different software. I like Appfolio, like I've mentioned before, and I'm starting to understand it and how to generate reports for information that I need. But the one I'm thinking of changing has been okay. We've been collecting rents, but communication isn't what I need for myself. Because on all the other properties, I can email or call and get a response or get somebody to call me back. This one, it's taken her too long, and I know stuff comes up in everybody's lives, but there's not doesn't seem to be a backup person with her anyway. On all the other ones, there are several different people. One, a lot of times it's one for each, like leasing, one for evictions, one for maintenance, one for rent collection. And so if I have a certain issue, I know who to call. But on this one, she's like a one man show and she doesn't call back when as soon as I would like her to call back. So I found some good resources I'm going to check into on Monday. And I was thankful that I asked you about it because you had some good questions about interviewing a property manager. I think you sent me a list from Bigger Pockets as well. But some of the things that were important to you was possibly getting copies of leases, copies of the management agreements, asking the PM if they have investment properties is a big one because if they do, then they know the game and they know what's important to us as landlords because it's a business, right? We're really putting a lot of faith in them to handle business as close to what we would if we were in the area. Something that I like on some of our current PMs is they'll do before and after pictures of any repair work they do. Um, I like to get copies of maintenance requests just to know. You and I have talked about that before, just to know that there was a clogged toilet or there was a broken window or whatever it is. That way you can expect not to get the full month's rent. It's just nice to know, even though we shouldn't, right now, we shouldn't be counting on the full month or maybe trying to live on that money right now. But it's just nice to know that something's going to affect it. Um, you mentioned things like asking them what the average time on market is for newly posted rentals. Um, and one that I think you got from Zuber was what do they do to try to keep tenants in place versus, just doing nothing and just doing turnovers whenever they feel like it or whenever it becomes necessary. So I'm going in. I'll be talking to him tomorrow. Hopefully, he'll have some good answers to these questions.
Have you watched Dion's binder strategy and how do you implement it into your systems?
I did bring that up with our property manager in St. Joseph, and he hadn't heard of the binder strategy, but they do something similar. When lease renewals come up, they go out and get comps in the area so they can show the tenants, if you move out, this is what we're seeing for choices for you out there, and hopefully rents are higher on the other units. Um, the the tenants we have in there, well, this year we have pretty much all new tenants. We have three new tenants in the triplex. We have two new tenants in the duplex. We have the three we're trying to fill in St. Louis, so those will all be brand new tenants. So I'm hoping, they'll at least stay the year and we can see a little bit of normal cash flow coming in. But 2024 was definitely interesting.
And that's a good thing is we share our experiences with property management, and I've seen, the property management you like. and that is top tier. It's really impressed me. So it's good just to have someone to compare things to, just to see ways to improve and other things to evaluate.
Yeah, I think that's important. You and I talked about, um, getting just getting the maintenance notifications, not just so we know if the rent's going to be affected, but to know what the issue was so that we can keep an eye on it in the future. If it's like you get a clogged toilet this month and then one again next month and things like that. So far, the property managers have been good about saying this was a tenant cost issue, so we're going to bill the tenant for the plumbing cost. We've had that happen once or twice, but if it's something else, like there's roots in the sewer lateral or something, and you got to keep getting that cleaned out, well, maybe then let's look at changing that piece of or section of piping or something like that. But if they don't let you know what's going on, it's kind of hard to make those decisions. I think one of the last things that we talked about was one of our friends had friends who were interested in investing in real estate, and he was wondering if he should help them get into it. What did you think about that whole conversation?
I would I would like it maybe on the private money side. Then it kind of keeps some separation where they're getting their return consistently, and that's based on my responsibility handling the money, and then just trying to do a burst strategy or something like that. Maybe that's as far as I would go, but the amount of time it takes to show them, are they willing to put in the time, the effort, trying to learn everything? Because you shared your schedule Monday through Friday, how much real estate you're in the live streams and the meetings, countless meetings, and all the other things, just staying on top of your portfolio and checking rents. And with all that, are others going to be interested in doing the same type of work that it takes every week?
Yeah, there is a lot. I think if they want passive real estate income, I think being a private money lender is a good way for them to go. It sounded like these folks actually wanted properties, and
Mm.
you and I talked about personalities because you and Cynthia and I have been through a lot, a lot of discouraging things, repairs, vacancies, evictions, and we've been able to keep moving forward, but not everybody has that kind of personality, right? As soon as something goes wrong, they're going to want to sell the place. And if they sell it right away, they're obviously going to lose money right off the bat because of closing costs and things like that that they will pay to the agent to sell it. And we people seem like they might have a tendency to blame this person who got them into real estate when they were the ones asking to get it in. Um, so that was a big part of the discussion that night. Um, I think, if somebody came to me asking me about getting into real estate, I think once I showed them our past year, they wouldn't want to get in. You know, you've had a similar year as we have,
Oh,
and a lot of the other people in the group have had challenges too, and we're still going forward because we can see that it's a long game, right? It's not just instant um, millionaire status or things like that. So I think most people don't have what it takes to do this. And like the guys have said, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. But there is going to be a benefit, and you wouldn't want to lose friendships over something like this, I think.
and that's why I like all the REI Avengers. They repeat things a lot. So they'll talk about the 5 years that suck, and Dion that says it took me 10 years to be an overnight success. All those gems, and Matt especially talks about pivoting. And I didn't understand that starting out, but now I kind of understand it a little bit more. And I'm still learning every day. I just try to be humble, but it was a painful last year. And I'm hoping this year will be a little bit better, but I can just see incremental gains here and there, and that's all I'm hoping for. And I'm just trying to be a better operator.
Yeah, I mean, it's evident to us, you and Cynthia and I talk every week, and everything that you're learning to this point is definitely going to help you moving forward. Just like with us, I mean, we learn new stuff with each deal, and um, a couple small mistakes. I think the mistakes are getting smaller and smaller. We're on the next one. Each one we're doing a little bit better, but there are still issues. We had you and us, we had a discussion recently about how much money to keep in reserves. And for the areas that we invest in, for us, it's definitely C-class properties, areas that are more cash flow than appreciation. For us, that's what we need. For younger people, they can buy in areas where they think appreciation is going to be a factor later on down the line because they have time for that to build. But again, in the markets that we invest in, I think for us, we need to keep a higher amount of reserves just to protect us because maybe the tenants don't stay as long. And um, when we buy places, we usually will do a roof or hope it has a pretty new roof. That's one of the big things for me. Bigger items like the furnace, air conditioners, water heaters. Hopefully they have a few years of life left. But just in the last couple that we bought, we had to do a new water heater and we did a roof. So um, hopefully those are going to be good for quite a long time, and we'll be able to start building some cash reserves again since we spent so much this year.
Yeah, you can be so in the now, so focused on things going on in the now. It's hard to look 5 years down the line. And that's what Dion helped me with is trying to take a step back and see how it'll look like 5 years from now, but just do the daily work, but just give it time.
Yeah, that's true. You just made me think that you and I, and Cynthia have been talking for about a year and a half because you reached out to me in August, not last August, but the August before that. And we've been talking every week. It's been really great. I mean, just to say how fast time has gone, right? We're already a year and a half in our portfolios. We've moved a year and a half forward. And before we know it, that 5 years should be over and things will be looking better at that point.
And it's amazing that you built this YouTube channel. And now if you have a similar situation where someone is interested in investing, you can test them out. Say, hey, if you're really interested, check out my YouTube channel. It'll save you so much time. You're doubling up your time. Then once they watch that, you can, I guess, quiz them. Say, okay, let's see how much you're really into this. And if they pass the test, then maybe you pour more time into them.
Yeah, that's true because some people in our lives have had a question here or there, but that's as far as it gets, right? Oh, you do this, where do you do it? And that sounds interesting, and that's the last you hear on, but nobody has really dove in and tried to learn anything about it so far. But that's totally different from the people that come week to week. We see the same people, new people coming in, and that's really inspiring just to know that there's some interest. And I think it's helpful for them because everybody in the group is doing it, right? So they get inspiration from other people, and not everybody's doing the same kind of investing. So that helps too, that there's different types of investing, different areas in the states. We've made connections with people in other states that didn't know, they had a neighbor that did it too, and things like that. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, the best is if you meet a member from ORAT and you're investing in the same market, it is like such a melding of it's the same language, you got the same cash on cash, try the calculations, nothing better than that.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Well, I hope that we'll get to see you again this Wednesday, and then we'll recap it next week. But as always, thank you for joining me to do these. Like I said, you've been here every week, just like we have. It's a big time commitment, and I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. And I learned so much from our talks, and I really appreciate it as well.
Okay, great. We'll see you soon.
All right, see ya.